Sarah wiped the sweat from her forehead as she walked across the dusty shooting range. The morning sun was already beating down hard on the outdoor facility just outside Phoenix, Arizona. She had been working at Desert Eagle Shooting Range for almost 2 years now, and her job was simple enough: hang fresh paper targets, collect the torn ones, and keep the range clean for customers. At 23, Sarah never imagined she would end up working at a gun range. She had studied art in college, dreaming of becoming a painter, but life had other plans. After her father passed away suddenly, she had to drop out to help support her mother and younger brother. The shooting range job paid decent money and offered flexible hours, allowing her to take care of her family while still pursuing her art on weekends. Most days were routine. Business people would come in during lunch breaks to blow off steam. Weekend warriors would show up with expensive rifles they barely knew how to use. Hunting enthusiasts would practice before their big trips. Sarah had seen it all, and she had developed a good eye for reading people just by watching how they handled their weapons. She was replacing targets on lane 15 when she noticed him. Unlike the usual customers who came in talking loudly and showing off their gear, this man moved with quiet purpose. He was tall, probably in his early 30s, with short brown hair and intense green eyes that seemed to take in everything around him. His clothes were simple: jeans and a plain black t-shirt. But something about the way he carried himself suggested he was different from the typical range visitors. Sarah continued her work, stealing glances at the stranger as he spoke quietly with Tom, the range owner. Tom was nodding seriously, which was unusual. Tom usually treated customers with friendly but casual conversation, but with this man his demeanor was more respectful, almost deferential. The stranger had brought his own rifle case, a long, black tactical case that looked expensive and well-maintained. As he unpacked his weapon, Sarah could see it was no ordinary hunting rifle. It was a precision instrument, sleek and purposeful, with a scope that probably cost more than Sarah made in 3 months. What struck her most was how he handled the weapon. There was no showing off, no unnecessary movements. Every action was deliberate and practiced. He checked the rifle with the confidence of someone who had done this thousands of times before, in places far more serious than a civilian shooting range. Sarah finished hanging the targets and was about to move to the next lane, when something unexpected happened. The man caught her attention with a slight wave. She approached cautiously, wondering if she had done something wrong with the target setup. "Excuse me," he said, his voice calm and measured. "I notice you've been watching how people shoot here. What do you think of most people's technique?" The question caught Sarah off guard. Customers rarely asked her opinion about anything beyond where the bathroom was located. She hesitated, then decided to be honest. "Most people hold their breath too long and jerk the trigger," she replied. "They're so focused on hitting the center that they forget about the basics." The man smiled slightly. It was the first expression she had seen cross his face since he arrived. "You've got a good eye. Most people don't notice those details." Sarah felt a flutter of pride. She had indeed been observing the shooters, partly out of boredom but also out of genuine curiosity. Over the months, she had started to see patterns in what separated the good shooters from the poor ones. "Have you ever tried shooting yourself?" he asked. Sarah shook her head. "Can't afford the ammunition, and honestly, guns make me a little nervous. I'm just here for the paycheck." The man nodded thoughtfully, then did something that would change the course of Sarah's life forever. Without saying another word, he stepped back from his shooting position and gestured toward his rifle. Sarah stared at him, confused. The rifle was clearly expensive and sophisticated, not something a stranger would normally offer to a range employee he had just met. She looked around to see if this was some kind of joke or test, but Tom was busy with other customers and hadn't noticed the interaction. "I don't know how," Sarah said quietly. "That's okay," the man replied. "Sometimes the people who think they know everything are the hardest to teach. Fresh perspective can be valuable." Sarah's heart started beating faster. She had always been curious about shooting, but never had the opportunity or the courage to try. The rifles the range rented were old and rough, nothing like the precision instrument this stranger was offering. "Are you sure?" she asked, still not quite believing this was happening. The man's green eyes met hers directly. "I'm sure, but first let me ask you something. What's your name?" "Sarah," she replied. "Sarah, I'm going to teach you something today that most people never learn properly. The question is, are you ready to pay attention and follow instructions exactly?" There was something in his tone that made Sarah understand this wasn't just a casual offer. This man was serious about whatever he was proposing to teach her, and he expected her to be equally serious about learning it. Sarah looked at the rifle, then back at the stranger's steady gaze. Something told her this moment was important, though she couldn't explain why. Her comfortable routine of hanging targets and collecting paychecks suddenly seemed small compared to the opportunity standing before her. "Yes," she said, surprising herself with the firmness in her voice. "I'm ready." The man nodded approvingly and began to explain the fundamentals of marksmanship with the patience and precision of someone who had taught these skills before in situations where lives depended on getting them right. The rifle felt heavier than Sarah had expected as she carefully lifted it to her shoulder. The stranger, who had introduced himself simply as Marcus, positioned himself behind her, his voice calm and instructive. "Forget everything you've seen in movies," Marcus said. "This isn't about looking cool or being tough. It's about discipline and respect for the weapon." Sarah nodded, trying to control her breathing as Marcus adjusted her stance. His hands were steady and professional as he corrected her posture, never making her feel uncomfortable despite the physical guidance required for proper shooting form. "The rifle becomes an extension of your body," he explained. "You don't fight it or force it. You work with it, feel the weight, understand the balance." Sarah was surprised by how natural the weapon began to feel in her hands once she stopped fighting it. Marcus's teaching style was unlike anything she had experienced. He didn't rush through explanations or assume she understood concepts before he had explained them thoroughly. "Breathing is everything," Marcus continued. "Most people think they need to hold their breath for a long time, but that's wrong. You want to breathe normally, then exhale halfway and pause naturally. That's when you squeeze the trigger." Sarah practiced the breathing technique several times without ammunition, focusing on the rhythm Marcus described. She found herself entering a state of calm concentration she had never experienced before. "Now, sight alignment," Marcus said, pointing to the scope. "See these crosshairs? They're not just for decoration. The target needs to be centered, but more importantly, you need to be consistent every single time." As Sarah looked through the scope, the paper target 100 yards away suddenly seemed much closer and more detailed. She could see the individual rings and even small tears from previous bullets that had passed through. "When you're ready, squeeze the trigger straight back with the pad of your index finger. Don't jerk it, don't yank it. Squeeze it like you're trying to wake up a sleeping baby. Firm but gentle." Sarah's first shot surprised her with its loudness despite her hearing protection. The recoil was manageable but noticeable, pushing her shoulder back slightly. She looked downrange, eager to see where her bullet had gone. "Don't worry about the target yet," Marcus said, reading her thoughts. "How did that feel? Was anything uncomfortable or awkward?" Sarah considered the question seriously. "The trigger was smoother than I expected. And the scope didn't hurt my eye like I thought it might." Marcus smiled. "Good observations. Those are the kinds of details that matter. Let's try again, but this time tell me what you're thinking as you line up the shot." Over the next hour, Marcus guided Sarah through a shooting lesson unlike anything the range typically offered. He never raised his voice or showed impatience when she made mistakes. Instead, he would ask her questions that helped her discover the corrections herself. "Why do you think that shot went low and to the left?" he would ask, rather than simply telling her what she had done wrong. Sarah found herself thinking more analytically about each shot than she ever had about any task in her life. Marcus was teaching her to be aware of her body, her breathing, her mental state, and how all of these factors affected her performance. By the time they had gone through 2 boxes of ammunition, Sarah was consistently hitting the center rings of the target. Other range customers had begun to notice, gathering at a respectful distance to watch the impromptu lesson. "You're a natural," Tom called out during a brief break. "In 20 years of running this place, I've never seen someone pick it up that fast." Sarah felt a flush of pride but was more interested in Marcus's assessment. He had been quietly observing her progress, making notes on a small pad he kept in his back pocket. "Tom's right about your natural ability," Marcus said, "but what's more impressive is your attitude. You listen to instruction, you think before you act, and you don't let ego get in the way of learning." Sarah was curious about Marcus's background. His teaching methods and the way he spoke about shooting suggested military or law enforcement training. But he deflected personal questions politely. "What matters right now is your development," he would say when she asked about his experience. As the afternoon progressed, Marcus introduced more advanced concepts. He taught Sarah about wind reading, using the flags around the range to judge how air movement would affect her bullets. He explained how temperature and humidity could change a rifle's performance. He showed her how to make quick adjustments to her scope for different distances. Shooting is both an art and a science, Marcus explained as they prepared for Sarah's final shots of the day. The science part is understanding ballistics, physics, and equipment. The art part is developing the instinct and feel that only comes with practice. Sarah's last group of shots was her best yet. 5 bullets clustered tightly in the center of the target, forming a pattern smaller than a quarter. She lowered the rifle with a sense of accomplishment she hadn't felt since completing her first painting years earlier. "I can't believe I did that," she said, staring at the target through a pair of binoculars. Marcus packed his rifle with the same careful precision he had shown all day. "You did well today, Sarah, really well. But I want you to understand something important." Sarah waited for him to continue. "What you learned today is just the beginning. Real marksmanship, the kind that matters, takes years to develop. It requires dedication, practice, and constant learning." Sarah nodded but privately wondered if she would ever have another opportunity like this. Ammunition was expensive and quality instruction even more so. As if reading her thoughts, Marcus handed her a business card with just a phone number printed on it. "If you're serious about developing this skill, call me next weekend. We'll continue your education." Sarah took the card, feeling its weight like it contained more than just contact information. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. Marcus paused at the range exit, his expression thoughtful. "Because talent like yours shouldn't be wasted. And because sometimes the best shooters come from the most unexpected places." Sarah stared at the business card for 3 days before getting the courage to call. The number seemed to burn in her pocket during work hours, and she found herself distracted from her usual routine of hanging targets and maintaining the range. When she finally dialed the number on Saturday morning, Marcus answered on the first ring as if he had been expecting her call. "Sarah," he said, recognizing her voice immediately. "I was hoping you'd call. Are you ready for some real training?" "Real training?" Sarah asked, remembering how intensive their first session had felt. "What we did last week was just an introduction. Today, if you're willing, I want to show you what precision shooting really looks like." Marcus gave her directions to a private range located in the desert about 40 minutes outside the city. Sarah had never heard of the facility, which made her both nervous and curious about what she was getting herself into. The drive gave her time to think about how much her life had changed in just 1 week. She had caught herself analyzing other shooters at work with a more critical eye, noticing flaws in their technique that she would never have seen before. More importantly, she had felt genuinely excited about something for the first time since dropping out of college. The private range was unlike anything Sarah had expected. Instead of the concrete blocks and basic target stands she was used to, this facility looked almost military in its setup. Multiple shooting positions were built into natural terrain features, and targets were placed at various distances ranging from 100 to 800 yards. Marcus was waiting for her at the entrance, but he wasn't alone. 2 other men stood nearby, both carrying rifle cases and wearing the same type of simple, practical clothing that Marcus favored. Sarah immediately felt out of place in her jeans and range t-shirt. "Sarah, meet Jake and Rodriguez," Marcus said, introducing the other men. "They're going to help with your training today." Jake was a tall, lean man with prematurely gray hair and alert blue eyes. Rodriguez was shorter and stockier, with dark hair and a friendly smile that put Sarah somewhat at ease. Both men shook her hand with the same firm, confident grip that Marcus had. "We heard you shot a tight group last weekend," Jake said. "That's impressive for someone with no experience." Rodriguez nodded approvingly. "Marcus doesn't usually offer to train civilians. You must have shown real potential." Sarah felt both flattered and intimidated. "I don't know about potential. I just tried to listen to what Marcus taught me." "That's exactly the right attitude," Marcus said. "Today we're going to build on that foundation." The training session began at a 100-yard line, where Sarah demonstrated what she had retained from the previous week. Her first few shots were good, clustering near the center of the target, but Marcus and his colleagues were clearly evaluating more than just accuracy. "She's got good natural stability," Jake observed, watching Sarah through binoculars. "Breathing control is solid too," Rodriguez added. "Most new shooters fight the rifle, but she's working with it." Marcus nodded but remained focused on Sarah's technique. Let's move to 200 yards and see how she adapts. The longer distance presented new challenges that Sarah hadn't anticipated. The target appeared much smaller through the scope, and environmental factors like wind became more noticeable. Her first shots at the new distance were disappointing, scattered around the target with no clear pattern. What changed? Marcus asked, his teaching method unchanged from the previous week. Sarah thought carefully before answering. The target looks different, smaller, and I think I'm trying too hard to aim instead of just letting it happen naturally. Good analysis, Jake said approvingly. What else? Sarah looked downrange, studying the flags that indicated wind direction. The wind is stronger here, and it's coming from the left side. Rodriguez smiled. She's learning to read conditions. That's advanced thinking for someone who started shooting a week ago. Under their patient guidance, Sarah began to understand how environmental factors affected bullet flight. Marcus taught her to use the mirage heat waves rising from the ground as a wind indicator. Jake showed her how to estimate wind speed by observing grass and vegetation movement. Rodriguez explained how temperature changes throughout the day could affect her rifle's accuracy. Precision shooting is like solving a puzzle, Marcus explained as Sarah prepared for another shot. You have to account for distance, wind, temperature, humidity, even the angle of the shot if you're shooting uphill or downhill. Sarah found the complexity challenging, but not overwhelming. Each new concept built logically on what she had learned before, creating a comprehensive understanding of marksmanship that went far beyond simply pulling a trigger. As the day progressed, they moved to even longer distances. At 400 yards, Sarah struggled initially but gradually adapted to the increased challenges. At 600 yards, she managed to hit the target consistently, though not with the tight group she had achieved at shorter ranges. Most recreational shooters never attempt shots beyond 300 yards, Rodriguez commented as Sarah prepared for her first shot at 800 yards. This is serious long-range work. The 800-yard target was barely visible to Sarah's naked eye, appearing as a small speck in the distance. Through the rifle scope, she could make out the target rings, but everything seemed impossibly small and far away. Trust your training, Marcus said quietly. All the fundamentals are the same. Just apply what you've learned and let the bullet do its job. Sarah's first shot at the extreme distance missed the target entirely. Her second shot hit the outer ring. By her fifth attempt, she managed to place a bullet near the center of the target. The three men exchanged glances that Sarah didn't notice, focused as she was on the target downrange. That's enough for today, Marcus said, though Sarah felt like she could continue shooting for hours more. As they packed up the equipment, Jake approached Sarah with a serious expression. Can I ask you something? What are your plans for the future? Career-wise, I mean. The question seemed random after a day focused entirely on shooting. Sarah thought about her job at the range, her abandoned art dreams, and her responsibility to help support her family. I don't really know, she admitted. Right now, I'm just trying to take care of my family and figure things out as I go. Jake and Rodriguez exchanged another meaningful look before Rodriguez spoke up. There are opportunities for people with your natural abilities and attitude. Opportunities that could provide good careers and the chance to serve something bigger than yourself. Sarah wasn't sure what they meant, but something in their tone suggested they weren't talking about recreational shooting competitions. Marcus handed Sarah a different card than the one he had given her the week before. This one had no name or phone number, just an address and a date 2 weeks in the future. If you want to continue developing these skills, Marcus said, show up at this address at 9 a.m. on that date. Come prepared for a full day of training. Sarah looked at the card, then back at the three men who had spent their Saturday teaching her advanced marksmanship skills for free. What exactly am I training for? Marcus's expression became unreadable. To find out if you have what it takes to be truly exceptional at something that matters. The address on Marcus's card led Sarah to a nondescript building in an industrial area she had never visited before. From the outside, it looked like any other warehouse with no signs indicating what might be inside. She sat in her car for 10 minutes, questioning whether she should go through with this mysterious next step in her shooting education. When she finally gathered the courage to approach the building, she found a simple glass door with a small placard reading Precision Training Solutions. Sarah pressed a buzzer and waited, her heart beating faster than it had since her first day of shooting. The door opened to reveal a woman in her 30s with short blonde hair and intense gray eyes. She was dressed in practical cargo pants and a fitted t-shirt, with the same confident bearing that Sarah had noticed in Marcus and his colleagues. "You must be Sarah," the woman said with a warm but assessing smile. "I'm Lieutenant Commander Kelly Richardson. Marcus has told me a lot about you." The military title immediately explained some of the mystery surrounding her shooting instructors. Sarah followed Kelly through a reception area into a facility that was clearly more than just a civilian training center. The building contained multiple classrooms equipped with high-tech displays and computer systems. Through windows, Sarah could see an indoor shooting range that made the Desert Eagle facility look primitive by comparison. Everything was clean, organized, and purposeful in a way that suggested serious professional training took place here. "Before we go any further," Kelly said, leading Sarah to a small conference room, "I need to explain what this place is and what we do here." Sarah took a seat at a polished table, noting the American flags and military unit insignia displayed on the walls around them. Precision Training Solutions is a contractor facility that works with various government agencies, Kelly began. "We identify and develop individuals with exceptional marksmanship potential for specialized roles in national security." The words hit Sarah like a physical impact. National security, government agencies, specialized roles. This was far beyond anything she had imagined when Marcus first offered to let her try his rifle. "Marcus identified you as someone with rare natural ability combined with the right mental attributes for advanced training," Kelly continued. "Your shooting performance was impressive, but what really caught attention was your coachability, attention to detail, and ability to remain calm under pressure." Sarah found her voice after a moment of stunned silence. "What kind of specialized roles?" Kelly's expression became more serious. "The kind that require individuals who can make precise shots under difficult conditions when lives depend on accuracy. Law enforcement countersniping, military special operations support, protection details for high-value personnel." Sarah's mind raced as she tried to process this information. 2 weeks ago, she had been hanging paper targets for minimum wage. Now she was sitting in a government contractor facility being evaluated for roles that sounded like they belonged in action movies. "I'm not military," Sarah said weakly. "I'm not even particularly athletic. I'm just an art student who dropped out of college." Kelly smiled at Sarah's response. "Some of our most successful graduates came from completely unrelated backgrounds. We've trained former teachers, accountants, and retail workers who went on to excel in roles that required world-class marksmanship skills." "What does the training involve?" Sarah asked, still trying to understand what she was being offered. "If you choose to proceed, you would enter a 6-month intensive program," Kelly explained. "Physical conditioning, advanced marksmanship, tactical training, psychological preparation, and specialized skills depending on your ultimate placement." Kelly slid a folder across the table to Sarah. "This contains detailed information about the program, including compensation during training and potential career paths afterward. Take your time reviewing it." Sarah opened the folder and immediately focused on the financial information. The training stipend was more than she currently made at the shooting range. The starting salaries for graduates were more than she had ever imagined earning. "This would solve all my family's money problems," Sarah said quietly, more to herself than to Kelly. "Financial security is certainly one benefit," Kelly agreed, "but I want you to understand that this path requires total commitment. The training is physically and mentally demanding. The work afterward involves real danger and serious responsibility." Sarah looked through photographs of previous training classes, men and women of various ages and backgrounds, all looking confident and professional in tactical gear. She tried to imagine herself among them but struggled with the concept. "Can I ask you something?" Sarah said. "How do you know I won't just wash out in the first week?" Kelly's expression became thoughtful. "Marcus has been doing this for 15 years. He's evaluated hundreds of potential candidates. When he says someone has what it takes, his track record speaks for itself. But what if he's wrong about me? Then you'll discover that during training, and you can return to your previous life with some valuable skills and experiences," Kelly replied. "But based on everything Marcus observed, the bigger risk is not finding out what you're truly capable of accomplishing." Sarah spent the next hour reviewing training schedules, course descriptions, and career placement information. The program was comprehensive and intense, covering everything from advanced ballistics to emergency medical training to foreign languages. Students live on site during the program, Kelly explained. You'll have your own room and all meals provided, but personal time is limited. This is a full immersion experience designed to develop not just shooting skills, but complete professional competency. The living arrangements presented another challenge Sarah hadn't considered. What about my family? I help support my mother and brother. Kelly nodded understandingly. The training stipend is designed to allow participants to maintain their existing financial obligations. Many of our students are supporting families while they complete the program. As Sarah reviewed the materials, she noticed that specific details about job placements were vague. Career descriptions mentioned federal agencies and allied partners without naming organizations or locations. Where do graduates typically work? Sarah asked. That depends on individual aptitude and preferences, Kelly replied. Some join federal law enforcement agencies. Others work with military special operations units. Some are placed with diplomatic security services or protective details for government officials. Sarah realized that Kelly was being deliberately general about career specifics, probably for security reasons. The vagueness made the opportunity feel both more exciting and more intimidating. How soon do I need to decide? Sarah asked. The next training class begins in 3 weeks, Kelly said. If you're interested, we need a commitment within 1 week to complete the necessary background checks and preparations. Kelly walked Sarah to the exit, stopping at the door to offer some final perspective. Sarah, opportunities like this don't come along often. Marcus sees something special in you that even you might not recognize yet. The question is whether you're willing to find out what you're truly capable of achieving. Driving home, Sarah's mind swirled with possibilities and concerns. The opportunity was beyond anything she had ever dreamed of, but it also meant leaving behind everything familiar and stepping into a world she knew nothing about. That evening, she sat at her kitchen table with the training folder spread before her, trying to imagine herself in tactical gear instead of hanging paper targets. The decision felt like it would determine the entire course of her future, and she had less than a week to make the most important choice of her life. Sarah spent 3 sleepless nights weighing the decision before finally calling the number Kelly had provided. Her voice shook slightly as she told Kelly she wanted to accept the training opportunity. But once the words were spoken, she felt a sense of relief at having made the choice. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of preparation. Sarah had to resign from her job at the shooting range, arrange for her training stipend to be sent directly to her mother for family expenses, and complete an extensive background investigation that seemed to examine every aspect of her life. Tom, her former boss at Desert Eagle, was surprisingly supportive when she explained her decision. I always knew you were meant for something bigger than hanging targets, he said. That Navy SEAL saw it too. Sarah stopped mid-conversation. Navy SEAL? Tom looked surprised by her reaction. Marcus didn't tell you? Yeah, he's retired Navy SEAL. Did multiple combat deployments, then got into training and evaluation work. Guy's a legend in the shooting community. The revelation added another layer of significance to everything that had happened. Marcus hadn't just been an experienced shooter offering friendly instruction. He had been a decorated military professional evaluating her potential for serious work. On the morning Sarah was scheduled to report to the training facility, her mother drove her to the Precision Training Solutions building. They sat in the parking lot for a few minutes, both struggling with the reality of the 6-month separation ahead. I'm proud of you for taking this chance, her mother said finally. Your father always said you had hidden strengths that would show themselves when the right opportunity came along. Sarah hugged her mother tightly, fighting back tears. Take care of yourself and David. I'll call whenever they let me. Inside the facility, Sarah found herself among 11 other new trainees. The group was more diverse than she had expected. Men and women ranging in age from early 20s to mid-40s, with backgrounds including college athletics, military service, law enforcement, and surprisingly, several completely civilian professions like accounting and engineering. Kelly Richardson addressed the new class in the main briefing room, her tone professional but encouraging. Over the next 6 months, you will be transformed from individuals with natural potential into precision marksmen capable of performing under the most demanding conditions. The first week of training was a shock to Sarah's system. Days began at 5 a.m. with physical conditioning that pushed her beyond anything she had previously experienced. Her art student lifestyle had not prepared her for military-style fitness training, and she struggled to keep up with classmates who had athletic or military backgrounds. "Your body is your most important piece of equipment," explained Staff Sergeant Martinez, the physical training instructor. "If you can't hike 10 miles with full gear and then make a precise shot, you're useless in the field." Sarah's shooting skills, which had seemed impressive during her weekend sessions with Marcus, were just the beginning of what she needed to learn. The training program covered advanced ballistics, range estimation, weather reading, camouflage and concealment, observation techniques, and dozens of other specialized skills. Marcus appeared periodically as a guest instructor, teaching advanced marksmanship concepts that went far beyond anything available to civilian shooters. During one of these sessions, Sarah finally had the opportunity to ask him about his background. "Kelly told me you're retired Navy SEAL," Sarah said during a break between shooting exercises. Marcus nodded matter-of-factly. 22 years in the teams. Spent most of my career teaching marksmanship and running sniper training programs. "Why did you decide to help me that day at the range?" Sarah asked. Marcus was quiet for a moment, watching other students practice their shooting positions. "In my experience, the best shooters aren't always the ones who look the part or have obvious qualifications. Sometimes it's the quiet ones who pay attention and ask the right questions." As weeks passed, Sarah began to understand that marksmanship was only one component of what they were learning. The training included surveillance techniques, report writing, emergency medical skills, foreign language basics, and even diplomatic protocol. "You're not just learning to shoot," Kelly explained during a classroom session on threat assessment. "You're learning to be professionals who can operate in complex environments where shooting may be the last resort, not the first option." Sarah's classmates came from remarkably different backgrounds, but they all shared certain characteristics that became apparent as training progressed. They were detail-oriented, able to remain calm under pressure, and possessed the mental discipline to maintain focus during repetitive practice sessions. 3 students dropped out during the first month, unable to handle the physical demands or the stress of constant evaluation. Sarah was tempted to quit several times herself, particularly during a brutal week of training that required students to function with minimal sleep while maintaining shooting accuracy. The human body can do incredible things when the mind refuses to quit, Martinez told Sarah during one particularly difficult training exercise. "You're stronger than you think you are." By the 3rd month, Sarah noticed significant changes in herself. She was physically stronger and more confident than she had ever been. Her shooting skills had progressed to levels that would have seemed impossible 6 months earlier. More importantly, she had developed the mental toughness to perform complex tasks under pressure. The training scenarios became increasingly realistic and demanding. Students practiced shooting from vehicles, in low-light conditions while wearing gas masks, and from improvised positions that required creativity and adaptation. "Real-world situations never match the perfect conditions you experience on a standard shooting range," explained Jake, who served as a scenario instructor. "You need to be prepared for anything." During the 4th month, students began specializing in specific areas based on their individual strengths and career objectives. Sarah was assigned to the precision marksmanship track, which focused on extremely long-range shooting and counter-sniper techniques. "You have exceptional natural ability for long-range work," Kelly told Sarah during a performance evaluation. "Your hand-eye coordination and ability to read environmental conditions are in the top 5% of students we've trained." The specialized training pushed Sarah to attempt shots at distances she would never have believed possible. Under controlled conditions with perfect equipment, she successfully engaged targets at ranges exceeding 200 yards. "Distance shooting is as much mental as physical," Marcus explained during an advanced lesson. "You have to trust your training, your equipment, and your calculations even when the target looks impossibly small." As the program entered its final phase, students learned that they were being evaluated not just for skill development, but for specific job placements. Representatives from various government agencies had been observing training exercises and reviewing student performance records. Sarah realized that her 6 months of intensive training had been an extended job interview for opportunities she was only beginning to understand. The decision she had made in Kelly's conference room was about to determine not just her career but potentially the entire direction of her adult life. With graduation approaching, Sarah felt both pride in what she had accomplished and anxiety about what came next. She had been transformed from a college dropout hanging targets into a precision marksman, with skills that few civilians possessed, but she still had no clear picture of where those skills would take her. Graduation day arrived with a formal ceremony that Sarah's family attended, though they still didn't fully understand what she had been training for over the past 6 months. Sarah stood with 7 other graduates who had successfully completed the intensive program, wearing the same tactical uniform that had once seemed so foreign to her. Kelly Richardson delivered the graduation address, speaking about the responsibility that came with the advanced skills the graduates had developed. "You are now among a small group of individuals trusted with capabilities that can protect lives and serve national interests," she said. That trust must never be taken lightly. After the ceremony, Kelly pulled Sarah aside for a private conversation that would determine her immediate future. "3 different agencies have expressed interest in your services," Kelly said, handing Sarah a folder containing job offers. "Each represents a different path, but all recognize your exceptional abilities." The first offer came from the FBI's hostage rescue team, which needed precision marksmen for counterterrorism operations within the United States. The second was from the State Department's Diplomatic Security Service, offering assignments protecting American officials overseas. The third option was the most intriguing and mysterious, a joint task force that worked with military special operations units on classified missions. The Joint Task Force position offers the most challenging assignments and the highest level of responsibility, Kelly explained. But it also requires the greatest personal sacrifice and carries the highest security clearance requirements. Sarah reviewed the 3 options, each representing a dramatic departure from her life just 6 months earlier. The salaries were all substantial, far beyond anything she could have earned in her previous career path. More importantly, each position offered the opportunity to use her newly developed skills in meaningful work that served something larger than herself. "How do I decide?" Sarah asked, feeling overwhelmed by choices that would have seemed impossible just months before. Kelly smiled. "Trust the instincts you've developed during training. Which opportunity excites you most? Which one makes you want to continue learning and growing?" That evening, Sarah called Marcus to discuss her options. He listened carefully as she described each offer, asking thoughtful questions about her long-term goals and personal motivations. "Remember what I told you the first day we met?" Marcus said. "Sometimes the best people come from the most unexpected places. You've proven that over the past 6 months. Now you get to decide how to use what you've learned." Sarah chose the Joint Task Force position, drawn by the promise of challenging assignments and the opportunity to work alongside military special operations personnel. The decision felt right in a way she couldn't fully explain, as if all her training had been preparing her for exactly this type of work. Her first assignment came just 2 weeks after graduation. Sarah found herself at a military base in Virginia, working with a team preparing for a hostage rescue operation overseas. Her role was to provide precision fire support during the mission, using skills that had been theoretical during training, but were now critically important for mission success. The team leader was an Army Special Forces captain named Williams who had worked with precision marksmen from the training program before. "Your instructors have a reputation for producing exceptional talent," he told Sarah during their first briefing. "We're counting on you to live up to that standard." Sarah's first real-world mission took place in a hostile environment where American civilians were being held by armed terrorists. Her job was to eliminate specific threats from a concealed position while the assault team moved in to rescue the hostages. Lying in her shooting position at dawn, Sarah remembered her first day at the Desert Eagle Range when she had been nervous about simply holding Marcus's rifle. Now she was using advanced equipment to engage targets that posed real threats to innocent people. The shot she made that morning was at a distance of 800 yards in challenging wind conditions. The bullet found its target precisely, eliminating a threat that could have killed multiple hostages. The rescue operation succeeded without any civilian casualties. "Outstanding work," Captain Williams told Sarah during the post-mission debrief. "Your shot probably saved 3 lives today." Over the following months, Sarah participated in operations across multiple continents, always in a support role that required precision and reliability under extreme pressure. She worked with Navy SEALs, Army Rangers, Marine Force Recon, and other elite units that represented the highest levels of military professionalism. Each mission reinforced the value of the training she had received, and the importance of the skills Marcus had first recognized that day at the shooting range. Sarah's ability to remain calm under pressure and make precise shots in difficult conditions became her signature as a professional. 2 years after accepting the Joint Task Force position, Sarah received a promotion that made her a team leader responsible for training new precision marksmen. The role brought her full circle, allowing her to identify and develop talent in others the way Marcus had done for her. During a training exercise with new recruits, Sarah found herself thinking about the chain of events that had transformed her life. A chance encounter with a retired Navy SEAL at a civilian shooting range had led to opportunities she never could have imagined. One evening, Sarah called Tom at the Desert Eagle Range to check on how things were going at her old workplace. "You know," Tom said, "I still tell people about the day that Navy SEAL picked you out of all our employees to teach advanced shooting. He saw something special that nobody else noticed." Sarah smiled, remembering how intimidated she had been by Marcus's quiet confidence and professional demeanor. "He changed my entire life by offering to let me try his rifle. I was just hanging targets and he saw potential I didn't even know I had." "That's the thing about really experienced people," Tom replied. "They can spot natural talent even when it's hidden. He knew what you were capable of before you did." As Sarah prepared for another overseas assignment, she reflected on how dramatically her life had changed since that first shot with Marcus's precision rifle. She had gone from being a college dropout working for minimum wage to serving as a precision marksman on missions that protected American lives and interests around the world. The transformation had required dedication, sacrifice, and countless hours of training, but it had all started with a stranger's willingness to share his expertise with someone who was just hanging paper targets at a desert shooting range. Sarah packed her gear for the next mission, knowing that somewhere there might be another young person working a routine job, unaware of their hidden potential, and waiting for someone to offer them an opportunity that could change everything. The cycle of mentorship and development that had transformed her life would continue, creating new possibilities for people who might never discover their capabilities without the right guidance and training. The rifle case she carried now was her own, custom-built for the precise work she performed in service of her country, but she would never forget the weight and feel of Marcus's weapon that first day, when a Navy SEAL's simple gesture of offering his rifle without explanation had set her on a path toward a life of purpose and achievement she could never have imagined while hanging targets in the Arizona desert.